Hey, welcome. I'm really glad you're here. I want to talk about something that a lot of people are feeling right now. This quiet, persistent sense that something is shifting, that the world isn't quite what it used to be, that you are not quite who you used to be, that something bigger is happening beneath the surface of everything. And alongside that feeling, there's probably also some confusion, some questions, some impatience, maybe even fear. So today I want to offer you a perspective that hopefully gives you some solid ground to stand on. One that helps you make sense of what's going on, not from a place of panic or fear, but from a place of deep trust. Because what we're living through right now is real and it's actually good, even when it really doesn't feel that way. Before we dive in, I want to be upfront with you. There's a lot in this video. I mean a lot. We could write whole books about these topics. The topic is so vast and I've broken it into parts deliberately so it stays digestible and the pieces can actually connect for you. Each part builds on the last. So if it gets a bit complex in some parts, stick with me. Everything here belongs. Everything points somewhere. And by the end, I promise it will be worth it. All right, let's go deep. Part 1. The universal law of cycles. Let's start with something absolutely foundational. One of the oldest laws in existence. Everything moves in cycles. Look around you. Your heartbeat, it pulses, it rests, it pulses again. Day follows night. The moon waxes and wanes. The tides rise and fall. The seasons turn. Everything in nature breathes. Everything oscillates. Everything moves between two poles. That's not random. That's law. The Hermetic principles, one of the oldest wisdom traditions on earth, identify this as one of 7 fundamental principles. The principle of rhythm. Everything flows. Everything has its tide, its rise and fall. The pendulum swings, and that swing plays out at every level of existence, from the tiniest vibration of an atom all the way up to the largest cosmic cycles we can barely imagine. And here's where it gets fascinating. These cycles don't just show up in nature, they show up in the story of humanity itself. We're familiar with the small ones, the human heartbeat, about 70 beats per minute, day and night, 24 hours. The lunar cycle, roughly 29.5 days, the seasons, 1 solar year, solar cycles, approximately 11 years of rising and falling activity. But then there are the big ones, the astrological, the astronomical, cycles that don't unfold over weeks or years, but over thousands of years. One of the most significant is what's known as the Platonic Year, or the Great Year. It's a cycle of the precession of Earth's axis, a slow wobble that takes approximately 25,920 years, often rounded to 26,000 years, to complete a full rotation through all the 12 signs of the zodiac. It's essentially the long breath of the universe. Put another way, one inhale and one exhale of the cosmos takes 26,000 years. Half of that, around 13,000 years, is one breath, one phase. And we are standing at the turning point of one of those phases right now. Part 2. Looking back. What happened 26,000 years ago? To understand where we are, it helps enormously to understand where we have been. 26,000 years ago, the Earth was at the height of the last ice age, the last glacial maximum. Enormous portions of Europe, North America and Asia were buried under miles of ice. Sea levels were roughly 120 meters lower than they are today. Continents that are now separated by oceans were connected by land bridges. The Bering Land Bridge, today a stretch of ocean between Russia and Alaska, was dry land. The first humans crossed it on foot from Asia into what would become the Americas. Homo sapiens and the Neanderthals were still sharing the planet. The Neanderthals would vanish not long after, whether through assimilation, competition, or both, we're still not entirely sure. And yet, these people, living in one of the harshest environments imaginable, made art. The Chauvet cave paintings dated to around 36,000 years ago. Lascaux around 17,000. These images tell us something profound. Even then, humans didn't just survive. They meant something. They asked questions. Who am I? What is all of this? Why am I here? The earth was dominated by megafauna, woolly mammoths, giant cave lions, woolly rhinoceroses, creatures we can barely picture now, and the global human population, estimates put it at around 500,000 people. Today, there are officially 8 billion of us. That was the last time the pendulum was on this side of the arc. Part 3. 12,500 years ago. Transition, transformation, catastrophe. Now let's jump to the last great turning point, the end of the previous half cycle. Around 12,500 years ago, roughly 10,500 to 11,700 BCE, the Earth experienced one of the most dramatic transitions in recent geological history. A period known as the Younger Dryas ended abruptly. Within just a few decades, a blink of an eye in geological terms, the planet warmed dramatically. The ice sheets began to melt. Sea levels rose rapidly. What people had known as home, coastal plains, fertile valleys, perhaps entire civilizations, literally disappeared beneath the ocean. And here's what's so striking. Virtually every major culture on Earth, completely independently of one another, carries a story about a great flood. Mesopotamian myth, the biblical story of Noah, the Hindu text about Manu, the Greek legend of Deucalion, the oral traditions of indigenous peoples across North and South America. This isn't coincidence, it's a collective memory. It was a time when our ancestors, or perhaps more accurately, those who came before us, lost everything and started over. At the same time, something extraordinary appears in the archaeological record. Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey, a massive ceremonial structure built by hunter-gatherers thousands of years before what we traditionally think of as the beginning of civilization. Massive, precise, ritualistic. This single site rewrites our entire understanding of early human history. And then there's the Great Pyramid at Giza. The researcher Robert Bauval put forward the argument, still debated today, that the alignment of the entire Giza complex points back to the belt of Orion as it appeared around 10,500 BCE, right at that turning point. Were there civilizations before the flood that we've barely found a trace of? Names like Atlantis and Lemuria surface again and again in esoteric and spiritual traditions, advanced cultures that existed before the Great Deluge and were lost in it. Whether you believe those accounts or not, the question remains: what did the people who came before us know? What did they experience? What's clear is this: the transition 12,500 years ago was not a gentle one. It was an ending and simultaneously a beginning. And that matters because these kinds of transitions are never linear. They're chaotic, disorienting, and at the same time the seed of something entirely new. Part 4. Right now, we're in the next one. So where does that leave us today? Right in the middle of the next great turning. The Mayan calendar ended on December 21st, 2012. Not because the world was supposed to end, though plenty of people ran with that narrative, but because a new cycle was beginning. The end of the long count was the close of one world age and the opening of another. The Vedic texts of ancient India describe enormous cycles of time, the yugas. By several interpretations, we are transitioning out of the Kali Yuga, the darkest age, and moving towards higher cycles, times of increasing light, knowledge, and expanded awareness. Astrologically, we are shifting from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. The Piscean age, the last roughly 2,000 years, was marked by hierarchies, faith through authority, and religion as a power structure. The Aquarian age points toward individuality within community, direct spiritual experience, science meeting spirituality, and connection over control. We're right in the overlap. Does it sound familiar to you? And then there's something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough: the Photon Belt. Part 5. The Photon Belt. The Photon Belt is described as a toroidal band of intense photonic light energy that rings the galactic center. As our solar system completes the roughly 26,000-year orbit around that center, it periodically passes through this band. According to this framework, we are entering it now. So what does that actually mean for us? The frequency is rising, and that doesn't just affect the Earth, it affects everything living on it, including us. We're talking about an expansion of consciousness, an accelerated shift from a denser, more material-focused awareness into something broader, more connected, more luminous. Our mental and intuitive capacities are changing. What used to seem extraordinary, deep empathy, inner knowing, sensing energy, heightened intuition, is becoming more available, more normalized. There are descriptions of people beginning to access conscious memory of past lives, of telepathic connection, generally feeling and understanding others beyond words, increasing. The aging process, as some describe it, begins to slow. The body starts to remember something, a more original, lighter, more crystalline version of itself. And here's the piece that generally moves me when I sit with it. What's happening right now, for the first time, is that the plan is evolving with us. We are not passive observers of this transformation. We are active co-creators of it. That's new. That's extraordinary. And it's part of why so many souls choose to incarnate on Earth at this exact moment in time, especially those old souls with a lot of experience. Part 6. Sacred Geometry. The blueprint is changing. There's another layer to all of this that I can't leave out because it's foundational. Sacred Geometry. Sacred geometry is the language of creation, the underlying pattern through which life organizes itself, from the spiral of a nautilus shell to an arrangement of seeds in a sunflower, from the structure of DNA to the shape of galaxies. For centuries, for millennia, the dominant geometric pattern of our collective consciousness was what's known as the flower of life. Ancient, beautiful, but in its closed form, with all these little circles, sometimes called the daisy of death. It reflects a consciousness that circulates within itself, bounded, separated with all those circles. What shifted, and this is part of what sent the transformation into acceleration around 2010, is a movement toward the crystal spiral or sunflower geometry. An open, expansive, interconnected pattern, one that doesn't close in on itself but keeps expanding outward, one that doesn't divide but connects. And each of the circles you will see are always connected to the center, to source. That might sound abstract, but you feel it in yourself, in the people around you. that opening, that breaking out of old tight patterns, that hunger for genuine connection over isolation. That is exactly this. Part 7. Cosmic Scale. We are all mayflies. I want to step back for a moment and share something that generally grounds me whenever I think about it. 1 degree of the zodiac, 1/60th of a shift, corresponds to 72 years. That's roughly one human lifetime. A cosmic day, if you will. Our entire lives, with all their experiences, all their grief and joy, all their growth, equal approximately one day on the cosmic calendar. In cosmic terms, we are all mayflies. Now, I'm not saying that to make your life feel small, quite the opposite. I'm saying it because it means a transformation happening on a cosmic scale does not happen overnight. It happens across generations, across centuries. And that's exactly liberating. It means you don't actually have to see all of it. You don't have to feel all of it. You don't have to complete the entire transformation in one lifetime. You are part of the shift, an important part, but still only one part. Part 8. How long has this been building? This didn't start yesterday. Since the 1960s, something has been stirring. The first major wave of awakening in the modern Western world, the peace movement, the first spiritual seekers heading east, the beginning of a generation that started asking why instead of just how. The New Age movement of the 70s through the 90s was a detour in some ways. Sometimes naive, sometimes commercialized, sometimes more of an escape from reality than a genuine meeting with it, and yet it was a signal. Proof that human beings were suddenly craving something beyond mere survival. Meaning, purpose, connection, aliveness. That's not nothing, that's an awakening. The 2010 years brought another surge. The shift in sacred geometry, that opening of the pattern combined with significantly more light reaching the earth, the social movements of that decade, the global network, the beginning of the great questioning of institution, it all connects. And then came the pandemic. A collective shock, a collective pause, and for millions of people, a turning point. Suddenly, people had time to stop, to ask, what am I actually living for? What really matters to me? What's not working here? Personally, socially, politically. The great unveilings began. Systems that had operated in the shadows for decades started to become visible. And that's not coincidence, it's part of the pattern. Because at higher frequencies, nothing can stay hidden. We've reached a critical mass. That's a physics term, but it applies perfectly here. At a certain point, a system transforms on its own, not through force, not through revolution, but through sheer momentum. Enough people thinking differently, feeling differently, living differently, and the old structures simply lose their foundation. Which means we don't need to tear the house down. We can build a new foundation, slowly, carefully, but persistently. Part 9. Change always moves from the inside out. Now here's one of the most important things I want to say. How does real lasting change actually happen? From the inside out, always. That's not a spiritual platitude. It's just how reality works. External change without internal transformation doesn't hold. Revolutions that only topple outer structures without shifting consciousness end up rebuilding the same system under a new name. History has shown us this over and over. Real change begins when individual people start to transform themselves, healing their own wounds, questioning their own conditioning, taking responsibility for their lives instead of waiting for the world to change first. This is what's sometimes called inner liberation, the maturing of the soul, the quiet, courageous act of growing up from the inside. And when enough people do this, the outside changes almost of its own accord. Systems shift because the people within them shift. Institutions transform. New forms of leadership emerge. We are already seeing it. New voices rising, new structures forming, old hierarchies losing their grip. Not because they were defeated, but because they lost their ground. And what can no longer serve life can no longer hide. Everything is coming into the light. That's sometimes uncomfortable. It's hard to look at what has been, what is, what we've quietly participated in without fully realizing it, but it's necessary, because only when we can see clearly what is, can we choose what will be. Part 10. The swamp is deep, and that's okay. I want to be straightforward with you here, because honesty is respect. This is going to take time. The swamp is deep. The last 13,000 years, the dark half of the cycle, have brought an enormous amount of heaviness into this world. Suppression, pain, disconnection, shadow that doesn't clear in a single generation. And so it's completely valid when people say, I don't see any change. Things aren't getting better, they're getting worse. That's a real perception. I'm not going to brush it off. And at the same time, I want to invite you to widen the lens. Is the glass half empty or half full? There's no weakness in seeing the hard things, but there is a choice in where you place your attention. If you could sit down today with someone from 200 years ago, someone from a time when slavery was legal, when women had no rights, when children worked in factories, and you told them about today's world with all its problems, they would be astonished, not at the problems, at everything that despite those problems has come into being. Change is never linear. It surges forward and pulls back. It has setbacks, it has dark nights, but the direction across the long arc is clear. Part 11. Your body is transforming. There's one more dimension to this that I don't want to skip past because it affects so many people personally. This shift isn't only happening in the outer world, not just socially or politically. It's happening in your body. When frequencies rise, when more light reaches the earth, when the earth's magnetic field shifts and the Schumann resonances, sometimes called the heartbeat of the earth, increases, the human body responds. Our bodies are becoming more light-filled, more crystalline. We are returning to our original blueprint, one that most of us have no reference point for, but that the body seems to remember. In practical terms, many people are experiencing heightened sensitivity, to energies, emotions, food, sound, environments, changes in sleep patterns, waves of deep exhaustion that have nothing to do with physical effort. The body is processing. Sudden emotional releases without an obvious trigger, old energy finding its way out. A different relationship with time, the sensation that time itself feels different somehow. A deepening of intuition and inner knowing. On top of that, we are currently in solar cycle 25, approaching its peak. Intense solar storms, X-class flares, coronal mass ejections. Those energies hit the earth and they hit us too. There are also signs of shifts in the earth's magnetic field, which has been slowly weakening. Some researchers discuss the possibility of a pole shift. a reversal of the magnetic poles that the Earth undergoes periodically. Whether or when that happens, it's an open question, but it fits the larger picture. The Schumann resonance, stable for decades at around 7.83 Hz, has been showing significant spikes in recent years. That's measurable, that's real, and many sensitive people feel it immediately, as inner restlessness, as a racing heart, as a distinct sense that something is happening. All of it is part of the shift. It's not an attack. It's an invitation to adapt. Part 12. So what does this mean for you right now? And now we get to the heart of it. What does all of this actually mean for you in your very real everyday life? I want to leave you with 3 things. Number 1, practice equanimity. Equanimity isn't indifference. It isn't checking out. It's the capacity to stay rooted in the storm. To know I will move through this. This moment is part of something. The greater process is unfolding and I am part of it. When the next solar storm comes, when the next political earthquake shakes things up, when your body is doing something strange again, remember, this is part of the process. Not something wrong with you, something growing through you. Number 2, choose trust over fear. Fear has its place. It's a signal. It says, pay attention. Something needs your awareness here. That's valuable. But fear as a permanent state, that's not a fuel source for what's needed right now. What's needed is trust. Trust that the universe has a plan. Trust that this transformation isn't random. Trust that you, yes, you specifically, are not here by accident. You chose this on a level that the mind may not be able to fully grasp. Your soul said yes to this time, with wisdom, with courage. Number 3, be part of the shift from within. You don't need to save the world. You don't need to stand on barricades or make grand gestures. But you can, today, right now, be a little more honest with yourself. A little more courageous in your truth. A little more gentle with yourself. A little more willing to let go of what no longer carries you. That's it. That's the contribution that's needed. Every single person who does their own inner work, who heals, who grows, who opens, shifts the collective field. You're not alone in this. Millions of people around the world are doing exactly this, right now, in this moment. We are living in an extraordinary time. Yes, it's a time of upheaval, of revelations, of things that seemed solid, beginning to shake. And at the same time, it's a time of awakening, a time when millions of people are beginning to think, feel, and live differently. A time when a new kind of humanity is emerging, not by chance, but through the great breath of the cosmos. The 26,000-year cycle is turning. The Mayan calendar began again. The age of Aquarius is opening. The sun is sending its message. And you are right in the middle of it. Not as a victim, as a co-creator. I invite you to stay in trust, to meet the challenges as they come, to tend to your own inner transformation. And above all, to hold the slowness of the great shift with patience. One human life is one cosmic day. Let's make it count. Thank you so much for being here. And before I let you go, I want to share something that's coming. After summer, I'll be launching new courses, new programs where we can go much deeper into all of this together, into the shift, into your own transformation, into what's sleeping in you and waiting to wake up. Because knowledge is power, and my mission is to help you empower yourself. not dependent on anyone else, not waiting for a guru, not waiting for be awakened, but grounded in your own truth, your own knowing, your own strength. If that calls to you, make sure you signed up for my newsletter. The link is in the description and on my website at unlayer.me. That's where you'll hear first when things are ready to launch. And if this video landed for you, if it gave you clarity or sense of steadiness, or just thought, I resonate with it, I generally love if you'd like it and subscribe to the channel. It takes 2 seconds and it means the world in terms of getting this content to the people who need it right now. Because that's what this is really about, sharing the light, passing it on. See you in the next one.